America is not a racist country.
Ladies and gentlemen, it must be something in the air in Texas because these folks are as loony as they come. Let me just tell you about this story. This came out on Wonket.com, and Texas passes another critically stupid law banning kids from learning that racism exists. No, you're not hearing things. How do you wait 500 years later and then try to come up with a law that puts doubt into people's mind on whether racism exists? Well, that's a problem in itself, being that racism is shown in America on a regular basis. Okay, give me the era where it was not an issue in America. Which one is it? Oh boy. Mm-mm-mm. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed another terrible bill into law Friday, this time with less fanfare than the state GOP draconian abortion ban and voter suppression law. This one combats the imaginary scourge of critical race theory, which has become a right wing umbrella term for any discussion of racism in American schools, which means, look, we should be able to teach our kids whatever we want. So if it's going to be an issue, it's really best for you to get your kids out of school, teach them at home, and teach them the real reality of what America is all about and how these folks like Greg Abbott have obtained everything they have over the centuries. And they used racism to have an advantage over other people. That should be taught to our kids. Okay, educators and advocacy groups oppose this new law, but Abbott doesn't listen to medical experts about, CV. So why should he listen to a history teacher about history? The crap law prohibits learning certain concepts about race, presumably that racism existed and still exists as an institutionalized part of American society and its criminal justice system. Yeah, that's just crazy talk. The law develops a civic training course for educators so they'll have the skills necessary to, we guess, teach students how to bark the Pledge of Allegiance on command, like gifted and talented SEALs. Schools are mostly barred from giving credit to students for any advocacy work. Here's the kicker: the law urges educators to teach only that slavery and racism are deviations from the founding principles of the United States. So, in other words, lie to the students. So, in other words, y'all, the teachers and educators, they should just lie when it comes down to racism. That's what he's saying. Just lie to them. At this rate, Texas school children will wonder why Martin Luther King was dreaming at all. He should have just formed a singing group with John Lewis. Ever since the New York Times published the Nicole Hannah Jones 1619 project, conservatives have been even more desperate to whitewash American history. The results have been obvious: propaganda like the Trump administration 1776 commission report, and First Amendment shedding bills like this one in Texas that force educators to teach a fabricated version of history better suited for 1950s cinema than a 21st century classroom. I'll probably have to keep saying this until whiteness officially kills me, but how Are slavery and racism deviations from the founding principles of the United States when slavery existed during the founding, and the majority of the men signing the Declaration of Independence owned people, and slavery was recognized in the Constitution? The Fugitive Slave Act and the Dred Scott decision were major deviations that arguably weren't deviations at all, but reflective of the white supremacist society. Countries rarely fight bloody civil wars over deviations from their founding principles. Slavery wasn't a mere deviation from Texas' founding, but the literal catalyst. The Texas economy was dependent on cotton, right? 91% of America's wealth came from cotton. And who was picking that cotton? And who to this very day say to black people when they're being a racist that we should be out there picking cotton? Because we still hear y'all say this even to this very day. All right. Which was only profitable when enslaved people picked it for free. All right. So then the president of the Republic of Mexico declared that all enslaved people were emancipated. The Anglo settlers decided to fight for their freedom to keep other humans in bondage. Landowners and politician John Durst declared, "We are ruined forever should this measure be adopted." And the supposed father of white Texas, Stephen A. Austin, whined, "I am the owner of one slave only." An old, decrepit woman, not worth much, but in this matter, I should feel that my constitutional rights as a Mexican were just as much infringed as they would be if I had 1,000. 60 years after Texas gained its independence from Mexico, and more than 3 decades after slavery ended, and slavery did not end, you still use mass incarceration in this country to enslave people. Y'all still do that. So slavery really technically didn't go anywhere. Y'all think because you give it a different label, that's not what it is. That's exactly what it is. The Supreme Court upheld racial segregation with the 1896 decision of Plessy versus Ferguson. This wasn't a 5-4 liberal versus conservative thrown down with a swing justice surprise. 7 out of then 8 justices gave the legal high five to Jim Crow, which we're still living under. Okay, we're still living under Jim Crow. Whenever you have a justice system that treats two different groups in two different manners, Jim Crow still exists too. Justice Henry Brown wrote, "If the civil and political rights of both races be equal, one cannot be inferior to the other civilly or politically. If one race be inferior to the other socially, the Constitution of the United States cannot put them upon the same plane." The twist is that black people weren't considered equal politically because this decision reinforced the belief that they were socially inferior. You can't teach an American history without acknowledging racism, but Texas sure as hell is going to try. The Central York School District in Pennsylvania recently banned a children's book, I Am Rosa Parks, which even Fox News host Brian Kilmeade considered an overreach. But because conservatives include Parks on a list of approved black figures from history. However, there's actually no way to do justice to Parks' story without discussing the institutional racism. The 2018 Doctor Who uh, episode Rosa did a good job showing how the 1950s Alabama was actually more dangerous and overtly hostile to the Doctor, a black companion Ryan than an alien planet had visited in the previous episode. Parks didn't bravely resist the deviation from American principles of equality. She was arrested because she broke a racist law, which the vast majority of white Americans either fully endorsed or at least tolerated. That's not just American history. It's also America's present, and Republicans would prefer today's children are unaware of both realities. So this governor, woo, this governor don't even want the fact that racism exists in America taught to children. Wow. And don't the textbooks come out of Texas? Wow. Well, look at what's happening. Boy, y'all really going extreme with this stuff, aren't you? But like I said, it doesn't matter what they refuse to teach children in schools. You make sure you teach your children, and I'm talking about black children, the reality of what America is all about. And racism is right there at the top of the list, and it should not be overlooked. You have the right to discuss this within your families and teach it to your children. So it doesn't matter what these folks refuse to teach. What they gonna do? Come to your house and make sure you don't talk about racism? Please. I'd like to see you try. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.